Coming up today, 2 more MERS deaths are reported in Korea and the number of confirmed cases edges past 100. But the World Health Organization says Korea is getting a handle on the outbreak. Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-ahn is facing the final day of his confirmation hearing at the National Assembly. Plus, job creation in Korea hits a 5-month high in May, adding almost 380,000 new jobs on year. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 10th of June. You're tuned into our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. We begin with the latest on the MERS outbreak in Korea. 13 new cases were confirmed overnight, bringing the total to 108, while 2 more patients died while undergoing treatment. Let's connect to our Han Dan, standing by at the news center for more. Dan.
Mark, Korean health authorities have said they're expecting a U-turn in the number of MERS cases soon, but for now, the tally is on the rise. What's attracting attention today is that 10 of the 13 new patients contracted the virus at Samsung Medical Center in Seoul. They were either being treated or visiting family at the hospital's emergency room between the 27th and the 29th of last month, when the 14th patient, who's known as one of the so-called super spreaders, was hospitalized. So, Mark, Samsung Medical Center now has the highest number of MERS cases, 47 to be exact. But again, no need to be overly afraid because authorities have already isolated hundreds of patients, visitors, and medical staff who used the ER during that period. The 3 other new confirmed cases were at Geunhye University Hospital in the city of Daejeon, Daecheong Hospital, also in Daejeon, and Hallym University Dongtan Hospital in Gyeonggi-do Province. Now, about the 2 people who passed away, they were also hospitalized at Samsung Medical Center, and they're known to have originally suffered from severe illnesses, including liver cancer. And also, Mark, the news of a pregnant woman testing positive for the disease in a preliminary test shocked the nation yesterday. She tested negative in what was to be a final round of testing, but is now undergoing a retest since it's unusual to have contradicting results from the preliminary and the final test. Mark?
And Dan, Acting Prime Minister Choi Kyung-hwan made a special announcement on the MERS outbreak this morning. Can you walk us through what he had to say?
Well, his announcement can be summed up in 3 major points. First, the government has designated a number of hospitals across the nation to act as MERS treatment centers, and he's urging people to visit those hospitals, not others, if they have symptoms of the disease. The list of designated MERS treatment centers include SNU Borame Medical Center in Seoul, Seoul National University Bundang Hospital in Gyeonggi-do Province, Chungnam National University Hospital in Daejeon, and a few more. Second, he urged the public not to visit hospitals that have seen MERS patients if at all possible. And third, he made clear that MERS cannot be transmitted through the air and encouraged people to carry on with their everyday lives without being unnecessarily afraid. He also thanked the thousands of people who are quarantined at home and vowed to provide full support, including distribution of basic necessities and financial aid to those whose primary source of income has been disrupted due to the isolation. Back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, for that report. And we have some news that came in within the last half an hour or so. In the wake of the MERS outbreak here in Korea, President Park Geun-hye has decided to postpone her trip to the United States next week. Her office says the president is prioritizing public safety, especially as public anxiety over the outbreak continues in the country. Officials believe this week may be a critical turning point in containing the virus. Now, Seoul consulted with Washington earlier today, and the 2 sides agreed to reschedule President Park's visit as soon as possible. The presidential office added, despite the delay, Seoul and Washington will continue to bolster their partnership in addressing issues concerning the Korean peninsula. Now, there is growing public fear, despite all the reassurances we're getting from politicians that the MERS virus could spread further in the community. But the World Health Organization says Korea should be able to control the spread. Experts say there's no need to worry. too much about the situation, as health authorities are tracing down all cases that have been in contact with the confirmed patients. Son Jung-in reports.
The World Health Organization held a news conference on Tuesday at its headquarters in Geneva to share the latest analysis on the MERS outbreak amid growing concerns in and outside of Korea.
Since the start in September 2012, we have 1,190 cases, confirmed cases, including at least 444 deaths.
The WHO specialist on MERS said Korea was not affected by a persistent infection, implying the disease could be brought under control as all subsequent infections in the country were linked to the same chain of transmission. He noted that there has been no case of MERS transmission in the wider community outside of hospitals, but even if there were, it's not a matter that would throw them off guard.
We would not be surprised, we would not be surprised if we see a few cases coming up from the community.
On concerns the virus might have mutated, Mbarak said the strain in Korea is not that different from previous ones reported in Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia. Experts in related fields have echoed the WHO's assessment, saying the chance of a massive outbreak in Korea is not high and that simple infection control procedures could halt it. The WHO is currently working on a joint mission with Korean doctors and officials to help the country with its response measures, while efforts are underway in research institutions around the world to develop vaccines to combat the virus. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, the MERS outbreak has had plenty of knock-on effects on the economy, not least on the share prices of some of the nation's tourism, leisure and cosmetics firms. According to the Korea Exchange on Wednesday, local companies in those sectors have lost a combined $4.5 billion off their market capitalization since the first MERS case was reported on May 20th. Cosmetics companies heavily reliant on Chinese tourist demand have suffered the biggest losses as an increasing number of Chinese visitors have decided to cancel planned trips to Korea because of the outbreak. Shares in leading cosmetics maker Amore Pacific Group have tumbled nearly 15% since May 19th. Companies in the hotel, airline and other tourist-related industries have also seen their stock prices plunge. Now, despite this rocky period, industry experts say the negative effect of MERS will be temporary as long as the country overcomes the crisis. Now, some encouraging news for Korea on the labour front, as almost 380,000 more people had a job in May, the biggest on-year increase in 5 months. Statistics Korea says the total number of people in work last month stood at slightly under 26.2 million, as more workers found employment in the service and manufacturing sectors thanks to the warm and dry weather. The agency attributes the size of the jump to the lower base rate in May last year, coming just a month after the Sewol-ho ferry sinking. Korea's overall jobless rate in May dropped 0.2 percentage points on year to 3.8%. The nation's youth unemployment rate also fell to 9.3%. Korea's largest conglomerate, Samsung, faces a legal roadblock in a proposed merger of its two units aimed at paving the way for a leadership succession at the top of the group. US hedge fund Elliott Associates said on Tuesday that it has started legal proceedings for an injunction at a court in Korea to stop Cheil Industries' takeover of Samsung C&T. Elliott, which is the third largest stakeholder in the construction and trade unit, has urged other shareholders to oppose the takeover, saying the deal is unfair and unlawful. Shareholders are scheduled to vote on the proposed merger next month. Cheil Industries is the de facto holding company of Samsung Group, which is controlled by family ownership through cross-share holdings. Now, in domestic politics, the final session of a 3-day confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-ahn is currently underway at the National Assembly. During the morning session, lawmakers tossed questions to a series of witnesses on allegations against the nominee. Now, Park Geun-hye tells us more.
At Wednesday's session, lawmakers are aiming to dig deeper into a series of allegations against the nominee that have been raised during the past two sessions. To do that, they have called a group of witnesses in for questioning, one of whom is a lawyer representing the firm where Hwang worked after retiring as chief prosecutor. Questions about Hwang's time at the firm have dominated the last two sessions and is in focus at this one as well. Hwang received a hefty paycheck of some $1.5 million for his 17-month stint there, and the opposition has raised questions about whether the money was a payoff for using his influence with prosecutors and other legal officials to help his clients get favorable sentences. Hwang, who is also the current justice minister, has dismissed the allegations of influence peddling, saying he didn't do anything against his conscience and merely gave his clients legal advice. The nominee's exemption from his mandatory military service is also in the spotlight again, and lawmakers have called an army surgeon and a government official to give testimony on the issue. The two people made the decision to exempt the nominee from military service back in 1980. The final hearing follows the previous two sessions on Monday and Tuesday, where opposition lawmakers grilled Hwang into the night. After Wednesday's session, the hearing committee will decide whether to go ahead with the confirmation. If they do, the issue will be put up before the full assembly for a vote. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The National Assembly Speaker is vowing to settle the debate surrounding a revised parliamentary law. Assembly Speaker Geunhye says he will try to work out a compromise with rival parties to change phrasing in the law that has been deemed unconstitutional. The revised law allows the National Assembly to demand revisions to government ordinances, which critics say violates the constitutional separation of powers. Jung says he will try to change the phrasing to give the government more leverage to review and carry out any requests for revisions from lawmakers. President Park Geun-hye objects to the revised law, saying it could paralyze state affairs. Senior officials from Korea and Japan held talks in Seoul on Tuesday to try and resolve a heated row over Tokyo's push to inscribe wartime industrial facilities that use Korean slave labor as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. But with both sides failing to reach a compromise, they'll meet again later this month. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Tuesday's talks between Korea and Japan on Tokyo's controversial UNESCO bid centered on nailing down the specifics of a possible agreement.
The two sides exchanged views based on a document prepared by Korea, but there is still a gap since it was the first such discussion on documentation.
Tensions erupted when Tokyo sought to list 23 wartime industrial facilities as World Heritage Sites and marked them as being operational from 1850 to 1910. This angered Seoul since nearly 60,000 Koreans were forced to work at 7 of the sites during Japan's colonial rule of Korea in the 1940s. A UNESCO advisory panel echoed Korea's view, saying Japan must ensure the entire history of the sites is known to visitors. Since the first round of talks in Tokyo last month, Japan said it will respect the panel's recommendation, but did not lay out the specific steps it plans to take. With no concrete outcome from the Seoul talks, the two sides plan to meet again in Tokyo later this month. Officials in Korea say the two sides will try to reach a compromise as requested by other UNESCO member countries. The final decision will be made during a meeting of the World Heritage Committee early next month in Germany. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Some local experts have been giving their thoughts on the current political climate in North Korea, and a handful of them say Kim Jong-un's days as leader could be numbered before too long. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
A group of North Korea experts gathered in Seoul. The Network for North Korean Human Democracy and Human Rights hosted the seminar on Tuesday with the aim to better analyze the stability of Pyongyang's current political structure.
Kim Jong-un's regime is very unstable, so he is executing numerous close aides. Also, the North's economic situation has been worsening, with foreign trade on the decline and no economic reform measures in place.
Experts say Kim Jong-un is struggling to maintain his grip on power. They say the situation is likely to get worse before it gets better. Some North Korean watchers and analysts predict it's just a matter of time before the regime leader is taken down from his powerful post.
In the first 3 years since Kim Jong-un took control, political, economic, and social problems have escalated, so there is a possibility of resistance, riot, and even a coup. Kim's power structure has weakened significantly compared to his predecessors. I believe within the next 5 years, the regime will be overturned.
Even if Kim is removed, experts say a new leader will emerge in his place and continue to push the communist regime. They say, meanwhile, that in terms of future unification of the peninsula, Seoul needs to think long-term and focus on building trust with the North Korean public by providing unconditional aid and support. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. Have a wonderful day, and thank you as always for tuning in. And we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.